Good morning, everybody. This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and we're watching the U.S. Open. Dustin Johnson is leading, and Tiger is trying to hold on. It's good for TV. People like to follow him, whether they hate him or they love him. The ratings go up when Tiger plays.
He doesn't seem to be able to come through in these tournaments very much. He hasn't really challenged, in the big ones. But meanwhile, Johnson is pretty steady right now. He's leading the tournament by 2 shots. And I still want to watch Phil this afternoon. He's 7 over. If he has a good round this afternoon, he can play himself into it. And I wouldn't count him out yet. But the course is going to play easier this afternoon because the winds have died down and the greens have slowed down. So they had, this morning they had rough weather that they played through, where the rain was blowing a little sideways. So Tiger didn't have the best of it as far as the conditions were concerned. But we'll see. It's right now. It's Rose is within range at +1, and he's yet to tee off. He's a guy I'd keep an eye on.
Yeah, Rose is an excellent, obviously excellent. He's been a while. Watch out for Tommy Fleetwood. He's a pretty good golfer, and he's not in bad shape.
He's struggling right now.
+3 right now.
I think he just missed the putt. He's +3 or +4, but he's yet to really take off. And it's there's some good golfers who are still within range. Hopefully it'll be a good tournament before they're finished. There are a couple other guys who are playing decently today, who still could make a run. I don't think it's over.
Switching gears to the NBA and LeBron James, I have a question for you. There's news out that LeBron's son has signed up to go to school in Los Angeles. You know anything about that?
Well, they bought a house out there, and so he's. They may indeed, family might live out there, but that doesn't really, that affects LeBron where he lives off season. Wherever he makes, they got excited in Miami because it was just revealed that when he had the few days off between the conference finals and the finals, he came down here and spent the time with Wade and his other buddy from down here. And so they're saying, well, maybe they were recruiting him for the Heat, but they weren't. They were just hanging out in Miami, which he likes to do. Doesn't mean he's going to live here or play here. So, every time he makes a move into a city, everybody gets excited. I don't think I can't see him playing with the Lakers. I just think they're too far away from winning. They've got a young team, and he'd have to bring a couple of guys with him. But maybe Magic can recruit him. I wouldn't say that it's impossible.
Of course, you have the issue there with Ball and the Ball family, which seems to cause a lot of problems every time you mention that name.
Well, they're not going to cause any problems for him. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's an interesting story. It's a it's a non-betting. Well, a lot actually people are betting on what city he's going to, so that's a crapshoot. But
well, I'll tell you what. The New York Post has now devoted an entire page to sports betting, and William Hill is advertising in it every day because they started taking bets in New Jersey yesterday. And so they've got all kinds of handicappers that they're advertising. They've got their guy Howie Kasoy, who handicaps college sports, whose record is not great, who's going to be in there every day when that season comes around. But he's going to do additional stuff. They also, William Hill has a page in there where they've got some handicappers working for them, and they're doing additional stuff on baseball and soccer, and they're running soccer lines. They got a whole page on sports betting right now to accommodate the New Jersey betting public. So they are jumping on board. New York Post was always a pretty good publication for sports bettors. So now they've really pretty much tripled their devotion to it. And, Jersey got started yesterday. I didn't see any numbers, but I'm sure they did pretty well. The other thing is soccer, World Cup is getting started for real today. And there's a very good attraction this afternoon, Spain and Portugal. I had dinner last night with a guy who used to work for a guy who was very devoted to the World Cup, who was the leading Hispanic handicapper of politics in this country and researcher. And I said, who was your boss who have liked going into this? He said, Germany, without question. He said, Germany is the best team. He said, but he said that there are other teams to keep an eye on this year. And he said that, he would be rooting for Peru. He always wanted to see Peru do well. And he thinks they have a pretty good team this year. And they may surprise some people. But he said Germany is superior to everybody. Thought that was interesting.
Very interesting. Yes, very interesting. I don't know anybody really.
Well, they have the best roster all around. But Spain has a good squad, and it's there'll be some interesting matchups coming up. So, but you could get plus $1.05 on Spain this afternoon, and you could get a little bit of a higher number on Portugal. So you get odds for either team. Of course, you've got the possibility of a draw too.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated to bet soccer than we're used to, but a lot of people love it and a lot of people beat it. So that's the type of information we seek out.
Call me when they score.
Yeah, it's a tough game. They don't score much.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to miss ESPN's coverage of the World Cup. I thought Bob Lee did a tremendous job, and it's going to another network this year. And I thought Bob Lee, and I loved watching Julie Foudy because I always had a crush on her, and she's a very attractive woman, and she is a great analyst. And I guess the Sports Center will have her back on to do analysis. But ESPN, one of the great things they've done in recent years was their coverage of the World Cup. And Bob was a great host. He really did his homework. And they had some, Tirico was there too. They really had good people on the job there.
That network has gone through a massive amount of changes, that's for sure. I used to work with them. I used to go there every week and do a show. It's really changed over the years. I guess their product and their marketplace has really diminished quite a bit.
Well, apparently the word that about the people they had hired for their Plus network was incorrect. They still haven't finalized what they're going to do there.
What do you got going on this weekend, Hank?
Well, I had a good day in baseball yesterday. Finally, except for one game, I swept the board. So hopefully, I can continue a hot run there. And there's some pretty good baseball matchups that I'm going to be looking at. There's a race, big stakes race at Louisville. They're going to parade the Triple Crown winner before the race. But it's a big handicap race that I'll have for our followers. And let's take a look at the card out in California, see what's doing there. Next week, Ascot has some big races with a lot of American horses entered. So we'll see what we can find out from there. And that'll be next week. But I'm doing some work on that. And outside of that, this is kind of a quiet season, but I'm starting to work on football. I talked to a couple of people about what's going on with some of the different teams. I thought it was kind of interesting that the former wide receiver for the Dolphins keeps taking shots at the Dolphins quarterback, Tannehill. And he likes the quarterbacks they have in Cleveland. We talked a little bit about that the other day. But I'll tell you something. San Diego is pretty loaded. They've got really good, solid. Their pass rush is going to be something to contend with. They've beefed up their secondary. They're going to be an interesting team this year, the Chargers.
I did a piece on the AFC West a couple of weeks ago, and I like the Chargers to win it, and I actually like Denver to come in second. I'm looking at Oakland third and Kansas City fourth.
Well, I think Kansas City is going to be an interesting team, changing quarterbacks. Andy Reid's a good coach, and they've got a good running game. Defensively, they're pretty good. I wouldn't count them out yet either. That's going to be a competitive division.
Yeah, very, very much so. Big change. I mean, bringing in Case Keenum up at Denver, I think is going to really help them. And that's.
I don't trust him. We'll see.
Yeah, you and I have a different opinion about him, but he works hard. He's having a good camp. He's working very hard. They love his work ethic. Minnesota switching gears here, Minnesota took a big gamble. They bring in Case, they get rid of Case and they bring in Kurt. And that's a big risk because Keenum did a good job to control the game. They had a great defense. They controlled the game on offense, didn't make a lot of mistakes, and that's key. And
yep.
I still like them, but it's going to come down to whether Cousins can perform at that level or greater, and that's not been proven yet. So it's interesting. We should do some.
If Minnesota can get their running back healthy, it's going to make a big difference.
Oh yeah, I mean,
when he got hurt, they still performed pretty well, but he's a difference maker.
Oh, definitely. It's gonna be. I'm really excited about football coming. And we should talk a little bit more about football, maybe starting next week or something, and maybe do a conference.
5 more weeks until training camp opens.
Yep. Some new coaches in the league, head coaches that have never been head coaches. A lot of people think the Bears are going to be really improved, and I'm not so sure. They got a quarterback that's never proven it. He has potential. Everybody has potential. If they draft him, they have potential. And then you got Nagy going up there as, 1 year as an offensive coordinator. Now he's a head coach. You got Patricia going to Detroit. I mean, all these step ups don't mean they're going to be successful.
I agree. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think Baltimore's got big trouble. I think that coach is on a hot seat this year. He's got to produce. They've got an interesting it'd be interesting to see how they're going to use the quarterbacks there. I think that division, I don't know, it's pretty weak right now. I think Pittsburgh has a good chance to coast again. But, but that coach takes his foot off the gas consistently.
I've never been a fan of Tomlin. He does not push the team. When they play a bad team, they play bad. When they play a good team, they play good.
Yeah.
They give away too much, and that's all the coach. That's the coach, top and bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, and Roethlisberger's not getting any younger either. And they got problems with Bell, and that division is not that strong right now. I'm not that enthralled with them.
And Cincinnati is stuck with their coach too long, I think. And you look at Detroit. Talking about Detroit with a new coach going there, when is that quarterback going to deliver?
It's an interesting question, but Hank, they have absolutely no running game. They were almost dead last in running game last year. Their offensive line is terrible. Quarterbacks don't deliver unless they have some protection and they have a little bit of option with the running game. And they have not delivered a running game for that guy in years. I happen to like Stafford. I think he's potentially a winner. But I think their organization, just like Indianapolis, they don't do a good job supporting their quarterback. Andrew Luck would have had a lot more success had they been with a good organization, and I think Stafford's the same thing.
Well, Stafford was terrible in the red zone. That was part of his problem. In Luck, he's starting to throw the ball now. But Luck almost carried his team, single-handedly into the playoffs. So, but that was a weak division then. It's not a weak division anymore. No.
And you got the Deshaun Watson coming back for Houston. Their defense looks very strong. They got, that looks like, to me, Houston is without any major injuries, they're the winner of that division. And I mentioned the other day, they're going up to New England the first game, and they're getting 7. And you said it, New England might struggle early. I like the dog there. You might win the game straight up.
Well, they're loaded. This is their opportunity.
Yeah.
Coach is familiar with New England.
No, that's for sure, yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Well, anything...
how about Verlander? He's had another good game.
The guy's a machine.
He's been a pretty...
He's really been, since he came from Detroit to Houston, he has been absolutely a machine. It's hard to bet on him because of the price, but you can get him in a first 5 or a run line, or even, if you get a good pitching matchup, it's not a bad under bet. But it's hard to bet Houston under right now. They're hitting the ball really well.
I'll tell you who I feel sorry for, the Mets pitcher. He just can't get any run support, and he's pitching huge. And good underplay whenever he goes, but he's a top pitcher, and they just don't score runs. They get shut out back-to-back games. I mean, they're pathetic hitting-wise.
They are. He's good trade material. I don't know if they'll do it, but I imagine that somebody would pay a lot for him. If you're in a pennant race and you have a chance to win, that guy's one of the... I mean, their whole pitching staff doesn't get any support. And some of those guys, the guy going today, against Houston, against Arizona, the guy had a couple outings and he looks awesome. He shut down the Yankees a couple days ago, and they got pitching, and they are a good underplay, but you got to be careful who they're playing too. Arizona is hitting the ball really well. If they get by this kid, they might tear up the bullpen. But it's that whole Met organization is a disaster.
How about the Cubs? What happened to their bats?
they haven't really produced all year. I mean, a couple flashes here and there, but you know, the one thing about them is they're playing the Cardinals. They handle the Cardinals very well. That's really, it's the same thing. I mean, they always handled Milwaukee very well too, and they've had that kind of.
So this week.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So if you look at that Cardinal Cub game, you look at that, the Cards, great value at home, but they just don't beat the Cubs. Tough matchup. Yeah. Well, Hank, have a great weekend. I know you're going to come with some horse winners. We're going to have them up online. Jimfeist.com.
I would like to add one thing about the Triple Crown. And I was talking to a guy who works with the Breeders' Cup people, who was leaving for Ascot Sunday. But anyway, and he agrees with me. The fact that Gronkowski ran second in the Belmont tells you how weak the field was. But this, I hate to knock a Triple Crown winner, but he came along at the right time. I called him the Golden State of horse racing. He just didn't have to beat much. And, here's a horse, Gronkowski, who ran second in the Belmont off a long layoff, going 1.5 miles, who had never run on dirt before, who had been racing in England. Horses like that never do well their first time running over here against quality competition. But this was not quality competition. And this horse came along at the right time and won the Triple Crown and kind of made it a joke. Perhaps I shouldn't say that, but I'm saying it.
Well, you've never been shy with your opinion, Hank, and that's good. The people, when they get the truth from you, that's for sure. Anyway, Hank, have a great weekend. I appreciate your time, and everybody out there, have a great weekend as well, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Thanks, Hank.
All right, take care of yourself, Jim.
Okay, you
Bye-bye.
too, Hank. Bye-bye.